persuasive oratory speech. I am startled out of my skin when an intruder enters my car in a parking lot. Disoriented, I fail to identify the middle-aged woman dominating my vision. Gazing upon me with sorrowful pity, the stranger demands that my father allow her to pray for me. This experience stubbornly repeats itself throughout my life. Amen. After taking one look at me and asking if I have a mind, anywhere, in there, hails a classmate as a courageous and extraordinary hero for talking to me. In a much subtler display of pity, I congratulate a motivational speaker for sharing an inspirational story at a conference's opening seminar, only to be dismissed with the reassurance that I am the one inspiring him. Frequently, my Facebook wall features photographs of people with various disabilities captioned with the aggressive demand, "What is your excuse?" I oftentimes underestimate these photographs' popularity and grow disheartened when the number of likes that they receive climb to the millions, signifying the severe magnitude of society's ignorant and subtle manipulation of disabilities. I shoulder the burden of protecting my life story from being stolen and glorified by people desperately trying to feel better about themselves. In hopes of gradually relieving the burden, I will expose and exemplify society's manipulation of nearly 1/5 of our country's population, the number of people with disabilities estimated by the U.S. Census Bureau. By examining the underlying causes of this manipulation and offering alternative perceptions of disability, I will describe how to transform exploitation into inclusion. First off, in my search to understand why society misinterprets disabilities, I used thesaurus.com to trace the usage of the word disability and was alarmed to find synonyms such as disadvantage, restriction, and weakness. The word's ugly association with suffering can be traced throughout history, even to ancient civilizations, when people with disabilities were abandoned, separated from their families, or shunned from society. Although equal rights advocates in the 1930s planted seeds of change, segregation still lingers today, especially in the public education system, where special education students are too often kept from sharing transportation, space, and resources with their regular education peers. The Disabled in Action reports that only 10 out of the 19% of students with disabilities are fully included in public schools. As we force the other 9% to enter their schools through separate back doors and sit in separate classrooms, we make a statement about their worthiness to be included and accepted in our community. Out of sight, out of mind. To this day, I ride a separate school bus and continually fight to use the front door with my peers, evidence of a subtle culture of segregation that emotionally alienates people with disabilities. Society ultimately impedes inclusion with its ignorant and condescending generalization of disabilities. Unfortunately, confusion has manifested into manipulation. Since the concept of disability is dismissed as abnormality, people with disabilities are often treated as such. In a society that increasingly emphasizes vocational skills, capability and competition, differing abilities are seen as a detriment, a pitiful detriment. On July 1, 2014, a photojournalism page on Facebook called Humans of New York featured a picture of a man who had lost his arm, and a comment which peaked to the top of the thread with nearly 7,000 likes stated that the man reminded her that she has nothing to complain about. This top comment embodies society's knee-jerk assumption about people with disabilities, the attitude that no matter how insecure and unsure you may be feeling about your own life, it could be worse. You could have a disability. Since people with disabilities remain largely excluded from society's activities and attention, they are predominantly seen only as objects of inspiration, exploited as a contrast to a privileged life abundant with potential. The woman demanding to pray for me was not only acting out of ignorant pity. Furthermore, the man who marveled at my classmates' courage and the speaker who branded me as his inspiration were not acting out of kindness. In truth, all three were subtly, and most likely subconsciously, acting out of self-interest. These people are among the countless members of society that take one look at me and fabricate assumptions that I am suffering, that I cannot live my life to the fullest, that everything that I do shows me conquering a soul-crushing obstacle, and that bombarding me with sympathy and praise, merely for existing, marks them as a kind and considerate person. Society's pitiful and glorified portrayal of disabilities has ultimately become used by people desperate for a sense of recognition, perspective and fulfillment. At this point, you are probably thinking, how can we possibly erase a thought process so deeply ingrained and widely accepted throughout society? The answer is simple: we cannot. We cannot erase our history of brutalization and segregation of people with disabilities, nor can we erase every viral image that simplifies disabilities to barriers that need to be overcome with a determined and positive attitude. We have driven ourselves in circles on an one-way lane, and acceleration will only occur when we lock our gazes forward and broaden them to encompass the uncensored reality of disabilities, the reality that, as comedian and disability rights advocate Stella Young once argued, no amount of smiling at a flight of stairs has ever made it turn into a ramp. Radiating optimism at my school board will not persuade them to desegregate my school's hallways or grant me the dignity of riding the same school bus as my peers. Laughing as I squeeze through dark alleys in order to enter restaurants will not make the front door accessible, nor did beaming at representatives from my insurance company push them to approve the wheelchair that they denied me for months. Our predominantly able-bodied world must be conquered with frank and honest discussions about disabilities in order to promote accessibility and inclusion while expanding the horizon of individuality. I want to live in a world where others' expectations of me rise beyond smiling and enduring. I want to live in a world where special education students receive learning opportunities, not a mop and bucket to clean up the cafeteria after their peers. I want to live in a world where people do not avert their eyes and shy away when I extend my hand out to them, and I want to live in a world where all people with disabilities are free to access the front door of every building, of every opportunity. We must recognize the crumbling road behind us and the distracted dismissal of disabilities that currently clouds our vision. Only then can we pave a new path towards accessibility, open-mindedness, and inclusion. In conclusion, the image of disability was so deeply buried under the ignorance of untold centuries that even when advocates succeeded in unearthing it, it remained tainted, distorted, and misinterpreted. The perpetual segregation of people with disabilities results in an ignorant, dismissive, and exploitative glorification of their life story by their able-bodied peers seeking recognition and perspective in their own lives. Ultimately, we must continually question and expand our vision in order to appreciate the triumphs and complexity of people beyond their disability. Only then will a diverse, accessible, an inclusive society develop. The key message that I would like you to take to heart is that people who pity me and use me as their inspiration will only continue to do so unless we speak out together. The next time that you meet someone with a disability, look deeper. See the person, and presume competence.